As you all know, 2020 was a highly chaotic year for the world and many struggled as a result, so the title of this video might come off as arrogant. I assure you, however, that I'm not trying to brag about having a better year than most. I simply want to highlight how well my channel did in 2020, regardless of how the year might have been otherwise. The whole corona situation affected me as well, not being able to see my friends for most of the year, at least not in person, and steps had to be made to meet my family as well. I won't deny that the situation was part of why I was able to provide so much content though, not because I stopped studying or working because of it, but because the mostly digital semesters of university allowed me to stay at home more to work on my videos, even though I did still have a bunch of schoolwork. Another reason I managed to publish so many videos within the year is that I made a promise to release at least one video every month in 2020. Not only that, but I also released more than one video within some months. The most extreme case being November, when I released 4 videos for Ratchet and Clank month. That was a project I had waited so long to see through. There were a bunch of those in 2020, and I'll get to them. This is an unusual video topic for me, so how will this video unfold? What I'll do is I'll go through my videos of 2020 chronologically, month by month, and talk about why I made them, how I made them, what impact they had, and express my thoughts on them. I'll summarize my accomplishments in the outro and talk a bit about plans for 2021. With that said, let's go back in time to January 2020, where I posted my yearly TV show top 10 list. This video had to be made due to tradition, but then why didn't I make a top 10 video games I played in 2019? That's because I played most of those games for up to 3 hours, not nearly enough to form strong opinions on them, and my favorite would be Super Mario Maker 2, which is far from one of my favorite games. I would give the number 1 to Ahead in Time's excellent DLC in Yakuza Metro, but it seems wrong to do so. As for movies, I only saw 2, those being El Camino and Avengers Endgame, so a countdown video would be pointless. I saw more than 10 different TV shows on the other hand, and most of them were really strong, so I had to make a TV show countdown. Yeah, some of them were disappointing, but I still had a lot to say about them, proven by the length of the video, which is over double the length of my top 10 TV shows of 2018, so that's pretty crazy. This is a low-key video, since the visuals only consists of text and still images, and the background music stayed the same throughout the entire video, so only my voice recording took long to edit. Still, I'm proud of getting it out within the month given its extreme length, so I'd consider it a strong effort. There's not much else to say about this video, so I'll jump to the end of February, where I revealed Arcaedon's origins. 2020 saw my first anniversary since I created this channel on Leap Day in 2016, meaning my anniversary only appears once in every 4 years. In early 2020, I considered making my top 10 favorite video game franchises and release it on that day, but I figured I wouldn't have enough time to make such a big video at that point, so I made Arcaedon Origins instead. That's a video I felt I could only release on my anniversary, and I didn't want to wait 4 more years to do that or scrap the idea entirely. The timing worked really well in my favor because I was hooked on the game Dreams at the time, so I incorporated its creation tool into the video to show a time-lapse of me recreating my own logo. I looked through some tutorials, experimented a bunch, and did some test runs trying to recreate my logo in real time. I actually made another attempt on the day of the upload, since I wasn't satisfied with the recording I had, and while the end result didn't come out perfectly, it was a major improvement. I'm glad I finally revealed the meaning behind my name and logo. I found it very fitting for an anniversary video, and it gave viewers insight into various things about my channel. The assortment of background music I used was really varied, and the selection might have seemed random, but I intentionally chose tracks from games that I either played at the time, like Ape Escape and Tearaway Unfolded, or games I would talk about later in the year, like Uncharted 4 and Jack X. It was in this video that I made the promise to release monthly content, which I could do since I had already uploaded a video in January, and I wanted to be more ambitious in 2020, which ended up working. I said I would produce some videos my subscribers have waited for me to make, which brings me to my Uncharted 4 review in March. After having released 2 Uncharted reviews with only 1 month in between back in 2017, I had taken an over 2-year-long break before releasing the next one, near the end of 2019. Fortunately, I only waited 4 months to release the final review for the mainline series, that being Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. This review was evidently longer than the prior ones about Uncharted, but it would have been even longer hadn't I shortened the script. The video thus lacks some points I was considering bringing up, like the game's puzzles, so I think it could have turned out better, but I left them out so I wouldn't overwork myself. That's a prominent theme with my videos in 2020, that most of them turned out longer than videos from prior years, yet I restricted most of them so they wouldn't become even longer, which is pretty crazy to think about. Anyhow, I'm still proud of this video, and I'm glad I didn't wait any longer to make it, especially since I captured the footage right before 2020, which meant I barely had any space on my Mac until I could finally delete all the files at the end of March. That process always feels damn satisfying. After returning to something familiar, I wanted to do something a little new in April, so I made my first decade countdown, focusing on movies. Before going into that, however, I have to give a shout out to Dirvinator, who allowed me to collaborate with him on a video discussing Ratchet and Clank's future. I actually sent my 1 minute 45-second contribution in the middle of 2018, but Dirvinator had to deal with some personal stuff. The finished product released near the end of April 2020, and the wait was more than worth it. I was seriously impressed by Dirvinator's effort. It turned out amazingly, and I implore you all to check it out and give him a sub. RedRatchet and the Golden Bolt also contributed video clips, so that's further incentive that you should go take a look. Link is in the description. I hadn't talked much about movies before, since I rarely watch movies these days, so this was a good decision on my part, and I had seen over 10 movies I really enjoyed within the last decade. This video is very similar to the first video I released in 2020, except half as long and with even fewer pictures, so it wasn't much of a hassle to make at all. In fact, I started working on it just 3 days before April ended, because the third Ratchet and Clank dub had to be pushed back to next month, and I had to upload something within April. I guess you could say the precursor to that dub got released in early May, in which I voice acted Lance and Janice discussing Pickle Rick. This was by far the shortest video I released in 2020, but I'm glad I did, since it was really easy and fun to make. I made this little shitpost within the same project as the third Ratchet and Clank dub, and it's pretty much a precursor to that, even though it's not exactly a trailer nor a tease really, but it did allude to more voice acting. The Pickle Rick meme was really popular at the time, and I enjoyed the different versions of it, so I wanted to make my own, and having Lance and Janice bring up Pickle Rick in Nefarious's head was the best I could think of, so I went with that. I'm really proud of the thumbnail I made for this video, it works too well for its own good. This wasn't the only video I released in May, as I managed to get the third RNC dub out just before the month ended. Where do I even begin with this video? I'll probably come off as arrogant, but I think this is my magnum opus. I mean, sure, it does have some dialogue missteps, noticeable visual flaws, and not the best sound quality, but the amount of effort and passion I put into it is unrivaled. It was so much fun to make despite how long it took, and the finished product is even better than I had envisioned. That's probably due to the 2-year break since the last dub, meaning I had a lot of time to flesh it out. Even while I was editing footage together and coming up with lines, I found many new ways to progress the plot in ways that made sense to me, like having Ratchet and Clank board the Starship Phoenix because their garage got destroyed by someone who seemingly didn't mean to, but was actually part of Drek's ploy. The very beginning was also a good way to set up the eventual main antagonist and give more insight into the whole drug ordeal. Due to their matching roles of trading bolts for crystals, I made the Mystic and the Plumber drug-dealing associates, and with both having blue skin, along with Nefarious, made it so I could have the blue guys be a faction. With these factors, I drew parallels to Breaking Bad, using that show's ending song when this dub ended. I even addressed a mistake in the first dub, where I wrongly claimed that Kerwan is the capital of the Solana Galaxy, when it's in fact Marcadia, and worked it into the solution for how Robot and Cat would defeat Drek. I also brought up TJ Fixman again, who had conveniently made another tweet about Ratchet's real name, Bartleby Bubbles McGadget III, being way better than Gregory. In TJ fashion, I made Ratchet forget about Angela Cross after using drugs, and the cryptic haikus that Bartleby utters made for a fun way to explain the drug visions. I also thought it was a stroke of genius to have Quark, or really Drek, talk like Yoda as Monkey Quark, and to have the Plumber sound like Mario. My friends really are excellent voice actors. They were a tremendous help for this dub to become as amazing as it is. Even though it turned out longer than I had anticipated, I'm so proud of how this all turned out. I thought it wouldn't exceed 15 minutes, but it became almost 22, which is basically episode length. I had no idea how long it would take me to make this. Production began in late 2019, I believe, and I quickly edited together about 6 minutes of footage mixed with dialogue ideas. I put it on hold for a while to do other things, and later added extra scenes and dialogue to it. Due to Corona, it was hard to get together with friends so they could voice act, so it took a while to have the whole script recorded. I also did many adjustments to the footage and sometimes needed to record new lines. This video did really well at first, claiming 500 views in just a few days, but it sadly came to a halt when it neared 600. It got such a quick boost at first since I had recruited Shyfuchs to voice act, who has a really large following in the Roblox community, so her contribution was highly beneficial. I had no idea that a dub would turn out to be my most ambitious project yet, but it was, and I had expected that for my top 10 favorite video game franchises instead. Speaking of which, I announced a guessing contest for that on my birthday in June. For many years, I had envisioned the release of my top 10 favorite video game franchises, exactly 1 week after a video detailing a guessing contest for said topic. Both were finally realized in June, and it was wise to release the guessing contest instead of the big video on my birthday. Not only did that give me more time to develop the big video, which I didn't have time to release any sooner due to schoolwork, but it probably also made convincing people to guess my top 10 easier, since why deny a birthday boy? I guess that counts as underhanded tactics, but hey, most seemed happy to help. I'm really glad I did get a bunch of guesses, because the video would have been pretty useless otherwise, and it wouldn't have been such an intriguing competition. I made the video quite simplistically, mostly just using images, but I'm glad I went with the Peace and Tranquility music from A Hat in Time, as it really set the mood. So did the thumbnail, which includes the Call to Arms poster, surrounded by confetti. Still, this video is only worthwhile because others contributed to it, and I highly appreciate that. This video made way for my much awaited countdown of my favorite video game franchises the week after. But before going into that, the guessing contest video also made way for a troll account with a simple shitpost. You see, in that video I claimed I would promote the winning channel regardless of its intent, even if it was a hate channel directed towards me, and I showed Argaydon as an example name. A friend of mine didn't want to publicly comment guesses under his name, so I implored him to make an Argaydon Luminos channel and make guesses with that account. I also had him release this shitpost about Ratchet and Nefarious calling each other simps, which just like the Lance and Janice shitpost spawned from the same project as the third RNC dub. The video can be interpreted as Arcaedon and Argaydon calling each other simps, with Nefarious aka Argaydon winning in the end. Argaydon sadly didn't win the guessing contest, but I'm still really glad we did all that. It was inspired by Clank from Emperor's New Groove saying, "Look, you're a simp," and we combined that with scenes of Ratchet and Nefarious on my lawn, which fit perfectly. This one was also really fun to make, especially since it wasn't just me voice acting by myself like in that other shitpost. If you want to watch this video, the link can be found in the description. Here's what I thought would be my most ambitious video to date, and while the dub turned out even more ambitious, this was still a really ambitious one that took long to make. Now, you might not consider a list very ambitious, at least not in terms of writing, but in terms of editing, it's very demanding. That's especially the case since I was covering franchises, meaning I had to blend together footage from maybe 50 different games, and that's not counting the intro and outro. The duration became exactly 50 minutes, which isn't the longest video I have on my channel, but it's for sure the longest video I have put a lot of effort into, as my longest one was a live stream that was more about improvisation. I had envisioned the intro segment to my number 1 Ratchet and Clank for years, since even before I made the channel. Okay, I didn't decide to use dance clips until near the video's release, but I had planned to show footage from each RNC game chronologically while the A Crack in Time credits theme was playing, and transition into the discussion segment over the beat's drop. I had a tough time figuring out how I would match the 15 clips with the music, but the timely announcement of the 16th RNC game Rift Apart alleviated the problem, and I'm really satisfied with how that montage turned out. That said, the video isn't perfect. There are clear editing missteps in it and jumbled writing due to how many games the video concerns. By far my biggest gripe, however, is that I didn't manage to release it on time, which to me felt like the equivalent of missing a monthly upload. That isn't just because I missed a deadline I set, but worse yet, I missed the 1-year anniversary of my favorite YouTuber Erika's death, who I dedicated this video towards. I'm not that beaten up over it anymore, but it's still a shame that I missed it. Either way, although this video didn't turn out perfectly because of its rushed development, it still has to be one of my better videos. Perhaps more than anything else, it opened the way for other potential videos in the future, since I don't have to hold back most of my thoughts anymore to keep up a mystery. It already spawned a bunch of later 2020 videos, such as the whole Ratchet and Clank month and the channel promotion video, not to mention the next video revealing my 5 other favorite video game franchises, which I uploaded at the end of July. I didn't include my number 15 through 11 video game franchises in the previous video, because I simply didn't have time to cover 5 more, as evident by how I missed the deadline only covering my top 10. Still, I didn't want to just waste away all those pages that took me a while to write, so I decided to develop a video out of those pages after a little break. While nowhere near as ambitious and not doing anywhere near as well as its predecessor, I'm still really glad that I made it, being very passionate about not just my top 10, but my top 15 at that. By the way, I had gotten a really good microphone for my birthday, but dumb as I am, I didn't know how to operate it until much later, so the voice recordings for this and the next video ended up with the usual sound quality, which isn't bad, but could have been a lot better. After blasting to the past, I felt it was about time to cover something newer, so I reviewed Ghost of Tsushima in August. I had always planned to review Ghost of Tsushima, no matter how I felt towards the game, and while it didn't end up becoming one of my favorites, I still really liked it, which I expected to. Given that this game is extremely long, there was no way in hell that I could keep footage for all of it, so I recorded it in short bursts at various points and deleted some unimportant clips to not overload my memory. This review is a bit like my review of Uncharted 4 in that both videos are more than 15 minutes long, and I had to cut down the scripts a bit so they wouldn't be even longer than that. This meant that this review also lacked some points I was considering adding in, but ultimately I suppose they weren't that crucial to include. Still, I think it could have been better if I had extended it, just like the Uncharted 4 review, but again, I didn't want to overwork myself, and I think the end result was pretty good nonetheless. Only a week after I released this review of a 2020 game, I released yet another in early September, this time covering Dreams, or rather art stream within Dreams. The reason I was so quick to make this review is that its length was shorter, and the game in question only amounted to a bit over 2 hours of footage, so the selection process went pretty smoothly, unlike the extremely long Ghost of Tsushima. It thus only took me 2 days to edit the footage together, which is really quick for a fairly editing intensive video like this. I guess it's odd then that the video is only 5 minutes shorter, but I did have quite a few things to say about this short experience. As soon as I finished Artstream, I decided I wanted to review it, but while I was eager to do it all the way back in March or April, I decided to postpone it until later, since I had other big projects on my mind at the time. Overall, this video turned out good, except for the sound quality. I found out that recording my voice while having earplugs plugged into the Mac would cancel background noise, but I mistakenly assumed my new microphone was working because of that. I therefore did the same for my next video, which is why my voice recording sounds so muffled in my review of Jak X as well, that I uploaded at the end of September. Like my review series on Uncharted, my review series on Jak and Daxter also saw a break lasting well over 2 years, so it was very relieving to get the Jak X review out, especially since it finally wrapped up my J&D review series. This video unfortunately carried over the worst sound quality from the last video, so it's really weird to listen to, especially after hearing my other videos. Beyond that though, it's a good video, and just barely became my longest J&D review, by 2 meager seconds. The lengths of my J&D reviews are actually really consistent, outside of Jak 3 that is, that one's on its own. Perhaps the most impressive thing is that I actually managed to churn out 2 fairly effort-filled videos within a month, although just barely, and maybe I should have saved this one for October, since the introductory Ratchet and Clank month video I released on Halloween was pretty short. Okay, while I thought my top 10 favorite video game franchises would be my most ambitious video, and the third Ratchet and Clank dub ended up being my most ambitious video, my most ambitious project was certainly Ratchet and Clank month. Well, this prelude to the month is only 4 minutes and 20 seconds, completely unintentional, but all the videos within the month combined are over 2 hours long, and while it wasn't completely editing intensive, it was for the most part. This video though was just short and informative with minimal editing, not much to write home about really, but I'd say it was necessary to outline the program. The thumbnail I made for this video might just be the smoothest thumbnail I've made, so I wasn't ashamed to use it at the beginning of the other RNC month videos. Also, I finally got the good microphone working in time for this video and the rest, with help from my dad, so my voice recordings sound way better than before. This video's short duration is contrasted by the next video, where I ranked every Ratchet and Clank video game, which of course had to be released on RNC's 18th anniversary on November 4th. For as long as this video is, it would have been way longer hadn't I removed about 6,000 words from the script. Although it took me some days to revise it, it was a very wise move since it meant way less time spent on editing the footage together, which is the process that takes by far the longest. It also prevented me from having to do even more audio editing, which is by far the most tedious process, often leading me to procrastinate. My discussion didn't end up as in-depth as it could have been because of this, but at least I lessened my workload and got the video out on time. In retrospect though, I should have finished writing the script long before October. I guess it didn't help that I played through all the 11 Insomniac, Ratchet and Clank games either, but I needed good footage, and I really wanted to replay them to get into the mood and truly sell the videos of RNC month. As you know, I'm short on space, so I could only fit one full playthrough of an RNC game at a time. I could fit both Full Frontal Assault and Quest for Booty though, since they're both so short, but why would I group them together? You see, I replayed them in the order of my ranking, from worst to best, which I had never done before, and it was a cool experiment. While Going Commando is my favorite game, I looked forward to replaying A Crack in Time the most, since I hadn't played it in a while, and it is almost tied with Going Commando as my favorite game. Anyhow, I thought this video turned out really well, with good editing, good soundtrack selection, and good scripting, despite the simplifications. This was my most successful 2020 video by far, topping 1,000 views in a month and currently sitting at over 15,000, which is insane. It also has hundreds of likes and comments, and gained me over 100 subscribers already, which I'm incredibly thankful for. I barely talked about Going Commando in the video, since I decided to make a review of it, which I published the week after on its very anniversary. This is my longest review video by quite a wide margin, but just like my earlier Uncharted 4 and Ghost of Tsushima reviews, I even had to cut away some stuff from this one. This video was generally really rushed, since I wasn't planning to make it before maybe mid-September. I had previously planned to release the 4th Ratchet and Clank dub instead, which would have probably come out at the end of the month, but something came up. You see, a YouTuber called Savo Central started a competition where you could win a PlayStation 5. In order to compete, you had to submit a video review of either your favorite or least favorite video game, and I obviously went with the former. Now, I didn't care to join at first, but when I realized I could incorporate it into my Ratchet and Clank month with perfect timing considering the deadline was just before Going Commando's birthday, I just had to take the chance. I wrote a first draft consisting of 5,000 words in maybe half a day, and while I didn't polish it until much later, it was most definitely a great head start. Despite this, recording my long script, reading in a day and editing the footage together the next days after having released an editing intensive video on over 40 minutes made this Going Commando video probably the most stressful video I've ever made, especially since exams were right around the corner. I edited all the footage together over only 4 days, which is by far the quickest I've ever edited such a long and demanding video. I said I edited together the 2-hour plus footage of the art stream review in 2 days, but that video is just a bit over 10 minutes, whereas the Going Commando review is 30 minutes, so 3 times longer, and with way more footage to choose from. Safe to say, it was a hellish experience, so it felt incredibly satisfying to finish and upload it, which I had to stay up until 7 AM for on November 10th. I wasn't even sure whether I made the deadline, which was on November 10th, but Sabo didn't confirm that submitting was closed until a week later, so I guess it got pushed back anyway. I just found out that I didn't win that PS5, which is a shame, but I don't regret trying. Considering how rushed it is, I'd say it turned out really well, and its rushed development does reflect the game in question, so that's cool to think about. It's not perfect, I would have liked to spend a lot more time with it to make it extra special, and I was really fed up by the end of its production, so I didn't pay too much attention to the selection, duration, and volume of the background music. Still, really proud of this one, and I wouldn't have been able to finish it so fast hadn't it been my favorite video game. It received amazing reception as well, surpassing 1,000 views before the year ended, and currently having over 7,000 views, over 100 comments, hundreds of likes, and only a few dislikes. Safe to say, all that suffering paid off. Next week's video, by contrast, was really chill to make, despite its bombastic topic, choosing weapons from the franchise that I would want to keep in my quick select. This video was extra chill to finish after I had released the Going Commando review, since I had already inserted most of the footage beforehand. That's because I was adding footage to it while adding footage to the ranking video, since like I said, I only had enough space for one full-length RNC game at a time, and I deleted the footage for a game after I was done with it. Unfortunately, DaVinci Resolve can't keep files you removed, so I had to export my current progress every time and insert new footage to the newly exported files. What I didn't realize was that every time I exported a file, the audio and footage would desync by a bit, and since I had to do that over 10 times, many scenes ended up noticeably out of sync. Now, I was able to improve the syncing in some areas, but the desync amount was different for every game since I exported them at different times, so the video still has many noticeable instances of desyncing, unfortunately. This was very difficult to explain, but I hope you got the gist of it. Anyhow, I'm really proud that I came up with this idea. It's a lot more original than a simple countdown, since I actually had to carefully consider what 8 weapons I'd want to keep out of hundreds, and choose a varied selection. It was really interesting reading viewers' comments about what their ideal quick selects consist of. There were some really well thought out explanations. Besides how out of sync the audio and visuals are, it's a good video, with a comforting length that's neither too long nor too short. The next video near the end of the month about my personal history with the franchise, on the other hand, might have been too long, but at least the editing process wasn't that bad. I had originally planned to kickstart the RNC month with this video, but due to my decision to make a review of Going Commando, it got pushed back to the end. I obviously needed to release that review on Going Commando's anniversary, and I obviously had to post the ranking before that, as to create a transition between them and not spoil my number 1. Editing the footage for this video went like a breeze, and I didn't even have to implement background music, since I just used background noise from the gameplay sessions of each game. While this video didn't require anywhere near as much time and effort as the prior videos of RNC month, this was the only video within the program that I missed the deadline for. That's because I underestimated how long it would take to edit the voice recording, given how it became over 40 minutes long, and I had an exam on the day it was supposed to be uploaded. I figured I wouldn't be able to upload it on that day, so I just pushed it to the next day, the 26th, which actually didn't bother me much, as I was just happy to be done with an exam, not to mention RNC month. Yeah, for as much as I love the series, RNC was the last thing I wanted to touch in the following days, ironically enough. It was really refreshing to be able to do something else, and that I did when I finally released the long overdue decade countdown for TV shows in the middle of December. This video is quite similar to my decade movies countdown, but I had a lot more to say since I tend to be more invested in TV shows, so it ended up with almost double the length. This one also consists of still images, text and a single background track, so only the voice recording was a hassle to edit. I uploaded my first decade countdown all the way back in April, so waiting until December to upload the rest felt really awkward. I wanted to get this one out in October, but I was far too occupied with Ratchet and Clank month at the time, so it had to be postponed until after November. I was done with exams on the 10th of December, but still wanted a little break before producing this video, so it didn't come out until the 18th. Another reason it took so long is because the screen on my Mac suddenly blackened one day, so I tried to fix it for a while before I simply connected it to a monitor. With this video's release, I had fulfilled my goal of uploading at least one video per month in 2020, but I wasn't quite finished yet, and near the end of the year, I finally got around to making the promotion video for the Rekounas show, who won the guessing contest back in June. As the year drew closer to its end, I wasn't sure if this video would be able to make it. It's a collab video, so it could have easily been postponed if either of us encountered problems or simply didn't have time. Fortunately, we were both really efficient and comfortably got the video out on time. Alex wanted it to be released on the 29th, I assume because his birthday was on February 29th, the same day as this channel's birthday. The video turned out well, with a nice exchange of speaking roles, and it was fun to collaborate on a video with a friend. Alex contributed a video clip he edited himself, provided some extra voice lines, and even made the thumbnail. The video turned out really short, but I'd say it was necessary, since a promotion video under 5 minutes is probably more effective than one over 10 minutes. It also made for a nice little breather, which was necessary due to the holidays, and because I was also working on another project that ended up being more than 10 minutes long. On New Year's Eve, I posted that video about my favorite video game from the last decade, Horizon Zero Dawn. A week before the end of 2020, I figured that making the last decade countdown about video games this time would be futile. That's because the video would be very long, require lots of editing, and lots of footage from various games. This realization was super frustrating to me, since I really wanted to get 20 videos out within 2020, and I really didn't want to deal with the video in 2021. However, when I went to sleep on the 23rd, I came up with the brilliant idea to only cover my favorite video game of the decade, while still mentioning my top 10 list. That isn't the first time I've had a eureka moment while going to bed. The bed is actually where I think up a lot of good ideas, especially for the Ratchet and Clank dubs. In fact, thinking in bed also contributed ideas to this video, including this very line. Pretty meta, huh? A convenient thing about this topic switch was that Horizon Zero Dawn was the only game I had captured footage of, and I had over 120 gigabytes of it, so it was nice to get that out of the way. The video turned out pretty good, although I definitely decreased the volume for the background music far too low, which is because I was wearing earplugs the whole time while editing it, and the audio sounds much louder with them on. Also, I didn't get to say everything I wanted about Horizon Zero Dawn, but I had to limit myself yet again, especially since the year was almost over at that point. I felt this was the perfect video to end 2020 on, because not only did I reveal my 10 favorite video games of the last decade, but I also finally revealed my top 10 favorite video games in general. If that wasn't enough, I gained a newfound love for Horizon Zero Dawn in 2020, and the whole year for me was basically building up towards the free time I would have in December, when I could finally replay the game, which had such a euphoric payoff. I'm thus really glad that this was my last video of 2020, and that it made 2020 at all. By the time 2020 was over, I had managed to churn out 20 videos, which is oh so poetic, given how it reflects the year. That was 6 more videos than I had released during 2018, and as many as I had released in 2016, 2017, and 2019 combined. At the start of 2020, my channel had 34 videos, and by the end, it had 54. I was really proud of this milestone, and the amount of content led to some other incredible milestones for my channel that came to be all thanks to those who watched my videos, including older ones. No joke, my most viewed video during 2020 was this channel's second ever video, a Game of Thrones shitpost I released in the middle of 2016, which initially got very mixed feedback, and I guess it still has, but it really blew up and widened the like to dislike ratio. That video gained almost 33,000 views over the course of 2020, and it had been stuck between 4,000 to 5,000 views in years prior, so that was a surprise to be sure, but a welcome one. I also have to give a shout out to my glitch showcase video on Ratchet and Clank 2 Going Commando from 2019, which reached 1,000 views and went beyond that by quite a lot. That video, along with my Going Commando review and every Ratchet and Clank video game ranked, were the videos that reached at least 1,000 views within 2020, so that was pretty crazy. All my videos combined, I gained more than 46,000 views in 2020, and if that wasn't enough, I gained 105 more subscribers. Now, I don't quite remember how many subscribers I had at the start of the year, but on the channel's anniversary I had 92, and by the end of the year I had 194, so I guess that means I had 89 at the start of the year, if the statistics are to be trusted. Either way, that's more than double the amount I had going into 2020, so even though that seems small compared to the YouTubers that have millions, it was an amazing milestone for me. It's especially amazing since in that anniversary video, I said, who knows, maybe I'll exceed 100 subscribers. That would be awesome. I also said, please pray for me that this will be Arcaedon's ultimate year. I really want to make this a reality. Which it became, hence the title of this video. I've already gained hundreds more subscribers within 2021, so I guess it can be argued that this year is already more ultimate than 2020, but that growth mostly happened due to my 2020 videos. I also call it the ultimate year since I finally got around to producing several videos I had planned to make for years, those being Arcaedon Origins, the guessing contest, my top 10 favorite video game franchises, Ratchet and Clank month, and the channel promotion video. I also continued some video series that had been put on hold, like the Uncharted and Jak and Daxter reviews, not to mention the Ratchet and Clank dubs. Of course, the amount of videos I uploaded also plays an important factor, and while some of them were short, I doubt I can exceed that amount, at least not anytime soon. So, how will 2021 go, and will it really be worth it if my channel is already past its prime? That'll be up to you to decide, but I do have a bunch of videos planned. If I'm willing to do monthly releases again, I do have a list of videos that can fit into each month, although I probably won't follow through with it if I'll do another Ratchet and Clank month. We'll see how it goes, but I promise that I won't stay completely dormant. I'm Arcaedon, and hopefully, you'll stick around with me for this YouTube journey.